Oh, I got beer all over my mic. Oh, fuck.
Oh,
Great start.
Staying in, Vinny.
Shambolic. We're in shambles, boys.
Does it need like cleaning?
Nah, it's fine. It's the pop filter. It's I got it on the pop filter. It's all good.
Oh, good. That's probably what they're for when you pop a tinny.
Or unless you accidentally come on your mic.
What's wrong with you?
Pop. Hello, people across the globe. You know what it is. It's the Goats Podcast. The show where we make it our mission. No, actually, it's our obligation to crown the GOATs, the greatest of all time, of absolutely everything. Last week we did a bit of a special episode, didn't we, boys? We did.
Oh, yeah, we did.
The variety box, the pick-a-mix, the little celebrations tins, little treat bag of mini goats, or pygmy goats, I think we crowned them, didn't we? So that was good fun. So today we're going to take it old school again, because we can officially say old school because it's past now, isn't it? We're going to go back to basics, and we're going to be getting into the world of inventions today. We're going to be crowning the GOAT invention. But before we get into that properly, how have you both been?
I've been all right. Yeah, it's been a pretty uneventful weekend, really. I bought a yo-yo.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if cool's the word, but it's something for sure. I mean, it's a yo-yo, is what it is.
Yo-yo.
But it's quite enjoyable. You know, it's better than, I don't know, like a fidget spinner or something like that.
Oh,
it's something
100%.
to do that isn't super cringe. I also listened back to the episode that we put out, not last week, but the week before, the Goat Painter and Decorator. And I was listening back to it, and I don't know if it's just me, and obviously everyone feels like they sound like a dick when they listen back to themselves, like everyone's voice sounds different to how it does in their head or whatever. But I noticed that the more I tried to talk about the sort of world's working class heroes, the more I started to try and talk like a bit of a geezer. And it was so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. Like there was some bits where I was like, yeah, and then he's like, all right, yeah. And I was like giving it all this, and I just sound like such a twat.
Because you're not a geezer, are you? That's the thing.
No.
It's cultural appropriation at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a geezer. I'm a bit of a... We're all kind of... we can't say pikeys. I'll bleep that. Michael, you're definitely a pikey, and I'm a bit of a pikey.
I'm not one of them. If I was to be... I will probably be culturally close to the kids sort of around the estate, the chavs, I guess.
Yeah, pikeys. You're a pikey.
No, because that's not what...
Pikeys are gypsies, but also it's you.
Okay.
That's the definition.
Right.
Like, if you
No
Google
worries.
pikey, you'd see you.
They did used to call me Mikey the Pikey, so fair enough. It's not as bad as Vinny's nickname, which we'll get into in a later on podcast, but I'll just hint it, which was for a very short period of time, Vicky Middlemore.
Oh no, we're not ready for that.
Don't worry about that. We'll just leave that little nugget there. And how have you been, Vinny?
Yeah, I've been very good. Other than like Sebek, I've been very busy. I just came back from my trip to Holland. In fact, I saw my friend there, and yeah, many a weed was smoked. Many a Hertog Jan was drunk.
What?
It's a Dutch beer. It's very nice. I've come to the conclusion
Do
I
you
don't
mean Heineken?
actually... Well, this is the thing. I've come to the conclusion that I think I don't like any of the Dutch beers, like Amstel, Heineken, Grolsch. They all taste like shit to me. But Hertog Jan, that's the one. It's fantastic. If you ever find yourself in the Netherlands, near an Albert Heijn, I want you to go in there. I want you to get a 6-pack of Hertog Jans. I want you to drink them right on the corner of the shop. I want you to pass out.
Can I just say,
I want you to have a good time.
Albert Heijn is the greatest sort of like corner shop like chain ever, innit? Like,
It's a
yeah,
supermarket.
like supermarket chain, like Co-op or whatever. Albert Heijn is the best one, innit? If I'm even pronouncing that right.
Albert Heijn is fantastic, yeah. Although they don't sell meal deals there or anywhere in the Netherlands, which is pretty frightful.
They did when I went. That was the best bit. I had a Emmentaler cheese wrap, a Coke, and something else. Some bugles in a little meal deal. That would have been in like 2012 or 13.
Maybe they abolished the meal deal.
Bring it back.
Make meal deals again.
Nationalised the meal deal.
But have you got any mad stories then, Vinny? Go on, hit us with a good story so we can open up this podcast.
Let me think for a second. There's a few things, I guess. You know, the Dutch toilets have like a shelf. Have you ever You ever notice?
Is that the
have you ever
same as the
noticed
German
this?
thing? The little look at your poo shelf. Is that what you're talking about?
Hey, what's it for?
Is that? It's so okay. So my friend. So I stay with my friend in Almere. It's like 20 minutes east of Amsterdam, and both toilets in his house weren't like toilets in the UK. They weren't just like one hole into some water and you do your business and flush. It's kind of like a plateau, and then it goes down into into a hole with water in it. But where you sit and where you shit, it just goes onto the plateau. And I actually I didn't want to shit first, like in his house, because I was concerned that wasn't what you're supposed to do with them. And I had to ask him, is it okay to poo in your house, in those toilets? But yeah, you just shit on a platform.
Yeah. So you can have a look. So you can see, be like, yeah, that's a nice healthy crisp brown, no blood, not too runny.
And then the water just zhuzhes it away, scooches it.
Like a water slide into the big hole, into the drop, yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah.
That is weird.
That's a thing.
It's bizarre. Yeah.
That's a good invention as well. That's a nice little treat for the first bit of the podcast, isn't it?
You're spoiling my... I was going to go for that, actually. Fuck.
Oh, no.
I kid. But yeah.
So other than the toilet, anything else? Yeah.
My friend took me to a desert in the middle of the forest, which is kind of weird.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. Why is that there?
Something about the Ice Age. They didn't really know, but apparently it's moving. It's constantly moving over thousands of years. But yeah, it's just a random desert in the middle of the forest.
I didn't open the picture, and I just assumed you were really stoned.
No, it was an actual desert. No,
I just assumed you'd taken a picture of a bit of sandy waste ground in the Netherlands, and that was all that had happened. I just was like, "Oh, Vinny's gone."
Yeah. No, it did. It was an actual desert, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, it was just sand and a couple of trees and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they call it the sand dunes.
Wicked. Well, should we get into it?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Let's go for it.
Without inventions, human beings wouldn't have progressed very far, would they? Without the ability to invent things, we'd probably still be in caves, not shitting on little platforms, but just shitting wherever it dropped. They're a key part of our human history, and as Plato once said, necessity is the mother of invention. And as Andrea Pirlo once said, after the wheel, the PlayStation is the best invention of all time.
No, he didn't say that.
Yeah, he did.
Andrea Pirlo,
Yeah.
the football player.
Well, or, he does. He looks a bit like a philosopher, but you could probably say he's a philosopher.
But why was he having anything to do with the PlayStation?
Likes to play FIFA.
Right.
Yeah, they're real quotes, yeah. I wanted to give, both sides of the story, because what makes a good invention really is in the eye of the beholder. We'll get into it later, but I've got a few shit ones on a list as well. But that's not what we're here to crown. We're here to crown the best of the best. The goats of the goats. The Billy Goats Gruff. That's over to you two, fine gentlemen.
Didn't make any sense.
Which one wants to go first?
Well, I don't mind. You decide.
You can go, Vinny.
So, I had a good think about this over in my holiday in Holland. I was originally going to do the internet as my greatest invention of all time, but decided that was a bit too easy, a bit too simple. So I got a bit more creative with it. And I had a revelation, fellas. And I realized that the greatest invention of all time was, in fact, lysergic acid diethylamide.
Oh, no.
Otherwise known as
no!
FSD.
Why have you done that? I can't believe you've done this. You're a fucking idiot.
What? You got Sam, come on, you got to let him argue his case.
Yeah, I suppose I do.
Remember when we designed this show, we sort of had a little thing about, should we pick what we're going to do first so we all know? Nah, let's keep it authentic. Let's not tell anybody.
Mistake.
That's what
that
happens.
Was a mistake.
Well, it's been great so far, so give him a break. Let's hear him out.
Okay, so yeah, a little history of LSD. If you're not aware, it was first synthesized in 1938 by a Swiss chemist by the name of Dr. Albert Hofmann. But its effects weren't actually found until 5 years later, when on the 19th of April 1943, Hofmann decided to give the substance yet another look and accidentally absorbed some of it through his skin. He basically just started tripping balls in the first ever LSD trip ever recorded ever. and asked his assistant to escort him home by bike, which was customary at the time in Basel, Switzerland, because I think due to the war. Thus, Bicycle Day was born, which is celebrated by psychedelic enthusiasts every 19th of April
Really?
in honor of the first ever LSD trip.
Have you ever celebrated?
I have, yes.
Hang on, the 19th of April?
Yes, a day before Hitler's birthday.
Yeah, so you do your LSD trip, go on a little bike ride, and then the next day you blaze up on 420.
Blaze up in honor of...
In honor of something they've forgotten.
Albert... I almost called him Albert Hitler. What's his name again?
Adolf. Oh, God. This is not helping your case for LSD being the greatest invention. Can't remember the first name of Adolf Hitler.
It's nothing to do with LSD, though. It's nothing to do with it.
It's got nothing to do with LSD or the week you just spent getting absolutely fucking wrecked in the Netherlands. Who's that guy? Aaron Hitler?
Who's that bugger? Tip of my tongue. But yeah, LSD was first used by psychotherapists to study the effects of psychosis, as at the time, they all believed LSD was kind of like a way to cause psychosis, like on demand, basically. Although nowadays, that's not believed at all, really. And more and more into the 1950s, LSD started being used in therapeutic settings for general therapy. It was mostly in like California, like Hollywood and stuff like that. It was like few actors and like directors and that sort of stuff, writers. And then obviously the 1960s hit and LSD started being distributed in recreational settings. And it basically just jump-started the entire counterculture and hippie movement of the 1960s.
So was it legal then? You say like distributed, it was just perfectly like,
yep,
take this is cool.
Yep, I'm talking about America and the UK. I'm not too familiar with the laws in every other country, but I'm mostly just talking about, the US and the UK. But yeah, it was all legal when all the hippies were doing it.
Yeah, so you just go down Boots. Oh, I need paracetamol, toothbrush, big bottle of LSD.
Well, they weren't sold at like stores, really. They were, because originally they was just for like therapeutic use. It was just for like certain people who could get their hands on a distributor, basically. But it was free. It was free to make, free to sell, and free to take. But then the US government, had to ruin everyone's fun, and they essentially outlawed it in 1968 on a federal level, basically because they were scared that an entire generation of people were turning on, tuning in, and dropping out, which was apparently a terrifying thought to all those...
Was that the propaganda slogan, was it?
That was Timothy Leary's slogan of the 1960s. He was a big LSD advocate, and he's kind of the reason why it got illegalized in the first place, because he kind of rocked the boat a bit too much for the government's liking, essentially. Basically because, the government thought all these hippies... Well, the government thought an entire generation of people would just basically not
amount to anything,
just go live in the woods, basically, just not really do anything, like, not really contribute to society, but just live in the woods and just smoke weed and, I don't know, produce rap records or something.
Okay.
But why do you think it's the greatest invention of all time?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good fucking question.
Need I remind you that this podcast is called Goats and sort of does indicate that you will bring forward a case as to why your suggestion is the greatest of all time in various fields.
Yes.
So it is a very, very good question, Seb. Thank you for asking that. Because so far you've offered nothing.
You've done a brief history of LSD.
Yeah.
I'm sweating.
With a kind of underlying theme of, I wish it was legal. That's all we've got. That's all we've got so far is there's a thing and, hey man, the government's taking away my fun, man. Oh man, that's all we've had.
Well, you say the word fun, but that's not all LSD is used for, my friend. LSD is a fantastic substance for...
Ooh, all right, Seb, we got to compose ourselves. Let's hear him out. He's got to present his case, hasn't he? Let's be serious now.
So yeah, LSD, I think, in my opinion, is the best invention of all time, just because it essentially it boomed like an entire generation of like music, an entire generation of like technology. It cultivated a whole ethos that to this day, like a lot of people still live by. It opened a lot of people's eyes to what living really can be and what it really should be at the end of the day. It honestly, there's been so many studies done quite recently because the DEA has actually started giving the thumbs up to people actually researching LSD once again, the first time since like the 1950s. But there's been loads of studies saying like how LSD and amongst other psychedelic drugs are really, really, really good for not only decreasing levels of anxiety in patients, also decreasing levels of depression and suicidal thoughts, and even as far as ridding a lot of people of addictions. This is the thing about like all these drugs, like LSD especially, is that they literally do rid people. They scrub your brain clean of addictions. They reform neural pathways in your brain, which are normally corrupted by, say, if you have an opioid addiction or a tobacco addiction or alcohol or something. They essentially rewire those pathways in your brain to back to like neutral, back to where they would be without those, addictions in the first place. And in fact, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous actually originally had LSD, like take some LSD in the 12-step program.
Really?
Yeah, because he attributed LSD to why he got sober in the first place. But obviously, I think LSD taking it as part of like a 12-step program, I don't think it flies really, especially because, it's illegal. Yeah, I think he was kicked out of that because, I think he was ostracized or something for it as well. But yeah, like honestly, like it's quite literally a wonder drug. I've got here like a 2014 study where some subjects received a full 200 microgram dose of LSD, while some others received 1/10 as much. The participants then took part in 2 LSD-assisted therapy sessions, 2 to 3 weeks apart. Subjects who took the full dose experienced reductions in anxiety averaging 20%, while those given the low dose reported becoming more anxious. When subjects taking the low dose were switched to the full dose, they too showed reduced anxiety, with the positive effects lasting for up to a whole year, just from one session.
Oh, that is actually quite impressive.
As well as all the flying dragons and spaceships and shit, yeah.
Well, that is a huge... it's wrong. There's a common belief, like, in popular culture that I think propagated by a lot of like movies and like TV shows, that if you take LSD, you'll see things that aren't actually there. But that's not entirely true. Like, the most you'll see really is like you might think you see some insects on the ground or something like that, and there aren't any. Things like the walls will be breathing, and you can maybe hear like birds chirping and stuff like that, and it's really, really interesting. And like scientists still don't really exactly know how LSD like works on the brain. It's to get nerdy for a second, it basically the LSD molecule looks very similar to a serotonin molecule, which, if you don't know, the serotonin molecule, what humans need serotonin for, things like it helps regulate appetite and mood and just general emotions, but also generally just like helps you perceive things. Like it helps with like senses and like looking at things and hearing and smelling and all that sort of stuff. But because LSD looks so similar to serotonin in your body thinks it is serotonin, and it starts binding the LSD to the serotonin receptors, which essentially means you, instead of receiving serotonin, you receive LSD, which kind of skews everything. The best way I've heard it explained is your subconscious mind becomes your conscious mind.
It makes sense, yeah.
So the things in the back of your head, which you're not thinking of like directly, but the things that are kind of like mulling over in the back of your head, maybe anxieties, maybe some stress, maybe trauma, something as like, horrible as trauma, but that stuff comes to the forefront, which is why, I don't think LSD is for everyone, because if you have said trauma, you're not going to be having a good time probably, because that trauma is going to come straight to the forefront. But for people who in a controlled setting with like maybe a therapist or an expert who can help these people, it's shown that it really helps them deal with these like traumas and stresses and anxieties, and really gives people like a new sort of lease on life.
I remember you saying that to me before, actually, that it's helped with like therapy, because it can be hard to unlock like the root cause of people's like mental health issues if there is underlying trauma that has potentially caused it. And you were saying that like the LSD brings it out in that session and deals with it, and then you can go on from there, can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
It seems bad bringing your trauma up, but like I said, in that controlled environment, it can be good.
To deal with stresses and anxieties and trauma and depression, you need to find the root cause of it. You can't just drug yourself and forget about it. You have to deal with the root cause that's causing you to have these problems in the first place, and that's exactly what LSD does.
It's interesting. I actually listened to an episode of, I don't know if it's like one of the biggest podcasts out there, but it's a podcast called Stuff You Should Know. It's like been going for years and years, but they did an episode on LSD, and they were very like, I was shocked by how pro LSD they were, but not in like, and the way that I believe they explained it, and it made me understand it and realize that actually it is a force for good. I believe, although I was taking the piss earlier, I do think that it is a force for good. Is that like, I don't support the recreational use of morphine and fentanyl, but if I go to the hospital, I would expect to be given some if it's going to make me better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so like your LSD is like the same sort of thing.
Yeah, like I'm not saying
you can put it in the same category. Like you shouldn't be like, you necessarily wouldn't agree with like the recreational use of it for the tripping out effect necessarily, but in the use of medical therapy and science and treating patients, then obviously it would be a useful tool.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in the sense of like, if you're changing your neural pathways on a molecular level, on a physical level, not just the way that you try to think about things, but like the actual neural pathways that you have in your brain that command things like addiction and depression, if you are changing those physically, then you are basically doing like surgery in a way. It's like microscopic brain surgery. And I wouldn't recommend that anyone goes home and tries to give themselves surgery.
Yeah.
And I mean that sincerely, because there's a genuine chance that you might do it and it might be fine. And like, I know people who've had really positive LSD experiences. I also know, I won't name names because I don't want to, but I know of older family members that I've spoken to who talk about it and say that, they had one good experience followed by 3 or 4 terrible ones, that they feel that genuinely, because it is like an operation, it does change their brain in a way that they've never quite been able to unchange again. And that is really scary, in the same way that if you tried to do surgery on your finger and then you got it wrong, you could give yourself a life-changing injury. And I think the same goes for LSD. I think if you were to do it in a controlled environment with a trained therapist who's going to be there and make sure that you're given the right amount and given the right stimulus to, genuinely, if it can change your brain chemistry and get rid of addiction, that's incredible. Like, that is amazing.
That is, yeah, it is definitely.
There's a quote in the Stuff You Should Know episode, and I can't remember which. There's a musician who was a big advocate for it before it kind of got the recreational boom, who talked about doing therapy, LSD therapy, and they said that what it allowed them to do was genuinely kind of take on the advice that people always give you. So like, they were saying, I feel like the world's spinning without me, or something like that. And the doctor just said, well, their therapist said, but you're in control of your own world. And like, that's the sort of thing that you would say to someone 1,000 times, but on LSD,
it will create that pathway.
It felt like they could genuinely, they could take it on board and realize that statement in a way that, like, I can tell you that, I don't know, as someone who's had bouts of depression, people are just constantly telling you, like, oh, have you thought about, just trying to be happier? And it's like, oh, yeah, great. But like, imagine if you could actually take that on board.
Like LSD, what I liken it to is it makes your brain like clay. It makes it really malleable. And that can be a bad thing if, when you're in the wrong setting, you're like wrong people and
bad vibes.
Yeah, bad vibes, and you can have a bad trip, and that could like change you for the worse for a while. You could get like just more paranoid, more anxious because of that, because your brain was in that malleable state and it was, not good forces were around you. But in the right hands with the right people, you could mold your brain into something way clearer, way more healthy, just way better. And I've actually experienced that for myself. After a few years ago, I did LSD, and it wasn't on the day I did LSD, it was the night after. I was just chilling by myself, smoking a few bowls, and watching Deus Ex Machina, if you've ever seen that movie. Really fucking good movie. And I suddenly got hit with this wave of like, and this is something that I've known for a while, and I've always thought like, oh yeah, I understand this, but it really hit me for some reason out of the blue, and it really stuck with me. But I suddenly realized that, you know how like your body, like I think it's every 12 years or 6 years, your body completely changes. Like the atoms in your body that were there 6 or 12 years ago are like, they're not there anymore. And it's the same thing for literally everything around you, all the objects, all the people, all the animals, everything, like the sky, the ground. Everything is constantly in this constant flux of ebb and flow, this give and take of just like life, of just things, of just like molecules and atoms, what we're made out of. And that kind of made me realize that like we are literally just all in the same big bowl of soup, you know? We're all the same thing. The universe isn't billions and trillions, quadrillions of entities. It's one entity, and we all share the exact same entity. We all are part of, you know, of everything. I'm you, and you and me. And I just thought that was a really, really beautiful thought, and I felt just incredible. And like it really dawned on me that, and I fully understood it. And I was like, holy shit! I thought I understood it before, but now I really do, and it was a great thought. Like I loved it.
Wow, that was very deep. I think, listeners, listen, it's all downhill from here. That's the deepest we're ever gonna get.
That we dug is we hit bedrock.
We've hit as deep as possible, and it was not a bad experience. It was great. That was beautiful, Vinny. I'm crying.
That was it. That was incredible. It actually was really, really deep. Do you know what? I do feel slightly bad because I did zone out a little bit because I was trying to find that quote where Super Hands tells Big Sue. You know, where he's like, there's a good way or a bad way. And he's like, I don't want to tell you about the bad way because it's probably not good for you right now, but it's fucking awful.
Fucking horrible, yeah.
It's fucking horrible, yeah. Yeah, that's it. I can't remember the quote. I was trying to look at it, I couldn't find it, and then I zoned back in, and Vinny was like getting real deep, and I was like, oh shit, I've missed something.
No, that was great, Vinny, but I wanted to backtrack slightly as well, because firstly, you're clawing it back. I'm not going to lie, I had no idea where you were going with this LSD thing.
And also, it felt like for the first 10 minutes, you didn't know either.
yeah, I had absolutely no idea where you're going. Now you're selling me. Now I get it. But you said as well that it did a lot in the 60s for like music and movement and culture and stuff like that. Expand, like what you're saying, like musicians that came out and like hippie culture inspired what, like peaceful protests and all this stuff. Like expand on that because I'm interested in it.
I don't think it's much of a secret that a lot of the bands of the 60s made their best stuff in like the later 60s and like the early 70s when psychedelic usage was definitely on the table.
A bit like the Beatles when Paul McCartney was replaced by Billy Shears.
Yeah, they did their best stuff.
Billy Shears loved acid, as we all know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, to get on topic, the 60s, a lot of just like the best music, like a lot of people will say, like a lot of classic rock heads, people who are really into their rock music will say that a lot of the best music came in the later part of the 60s, and it's no secret that it's because of psychedelic usage with all these musicians. Like the best Beatles work did come in the latter half. The best Beach Boys work came in the latter half when they stopped being just a surf rock, come on down to the beach with your best girl in your car and let's have a good time.
Pink
Floyd, that's another great example, yeah. Although one of the original singers of Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett, did take too much LSD and develop schizophrenia and had to leave the band.
Yeah, he never came back, did he? That's what Shine On You, Crazy Diamond is.
Yeah. But again, that's another case of he probably shouldn't have been doing it if he was inclined to schizophrenia.
Too much of anything is a bad thing.
Or shouldn't have been doing it on his own. That's the other thing. You know, do it with a professional.
I feel almost he shouldn't have been doing it full stop. Because, yes, if, like, for example, you have a family member who has schizophrenia, like, you probably should not do any psychedelics because chances are you might bring it on earlier on. But yeah, also just lots of psychedelic art, which I think is still pretty fucking groovy to this day.
Michelangelo would be proud.
That painter / decorator would be proud, yeah.
What about like culture? Like I was saying, like peaceful protest. I mean, I'm like assuming here. I'm like sort of asking you the question because I don't really know. But like I'm assuming like peaceful protest, like thinking more about the environment and nature and stuff like that. In my head, all seems like that all seems connected
Hummus.
to hippie culture and stuff. Is that fair?
Hummus is just from like the Middle East, isn't it?
Vegans,
white men with dreads.
Oh no!
But is
People
what I'm
playing
saying?
The bongos.
I love the bongos.
Well, everyone loves the bongos.
No. Ignore what Seb's talking about. He's talking nonsense. What I'm talking about, is that connected to LSD? Like that whole movement? Do you think that's all inspired from that? And is that a good thing?
100%. And yes, I do think it's a good thing.
So you're saying that to sort of close this out, that LSD has invented that and all the good that it's done for the world?
Yeah, I think that's boomed a whole entire culture. Like, I think hippie culture is pretty cool, honestly. I think it's nice for people to care about, the environment and care about animals and shit like that. It's good, We can't all be Wall Street wankers, tossing off 30 mil a day. I don't fucking know what they do, but snorting coke up their ass. The world would not, shit would crumble if we would all snort coke up our ass.
The world is a much better place. No matter how much people hate on smelly hippies, the world would be a much worse place without them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be. It'd probably smell better, though.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But also, for me, the bit that got me was, are you almost sort of suggesting as well that it is an amazing invention that because of the recreational use, which I'm not saying is good or bad, I'm saying it's a bit dangerous, but you do you, that because of the US ban and the probably following UK ban, I don't know which came first, that it's been underutilized and not utilized at all in a medical sense, where it almost certainly could do an amazing lot of good. It's like having the cure to depression and anxiety and gambling disorders and addiction, but we can't use it. So it's like this amazing invention that can't be used or should be used.
Yeah, it's criminal that they haven't done more research into it and haven't, given it the amount of time and attention that I think it requires, because honestly, I do believe it is a wonder drug, and I really think it can help a hell of a lot of people, especially in a time like this when, mental health issues are on the rise and addictions are on the rise. There's too many stimuli. You have your phone and you have like your laptop, you have the TV, it's a lot, and I think a lot of people need to be reminded that there's a world out there, and I think LSD really helps with that.
Great. I think that's, you have turned it around and saved it. Definitely, Vinny, because at the beginning there was no case for LSD being the greatest anything ever, the way you were talking about. It was the ramblings of
a stoner.
Let me say, a nutter. Yeah, you were just going on. I don't know what you were talking about, but I suppose like LSD, it
opened your mind.
Yeah, you reopened your mind and rejigged your neurological pathways there and brought it back, and there is a case to ponder there. Well done.
Could I also, I've got 2 more notes I couldn't squeeze in naturally. I'm just going to say them unnaturally. So Steve Jobs, co-founder and former CEO of Apple Incorporated, said, taking LSD was a profound experience and one of the most important things in my life.
Well.
And also, Kerry Mullis is reported to credit LSD with helping him develop DNA amplification technology, for which he received the Nobel Prize.
Fair enough to that fella, but Steve Jobs, I'm not having the Steve Jobs one. I can't. It's a nice segue you mentioned Steve Jobs, actually. Well done, Vinny. That was really good. You've done your case for LSD very well there. But I will move us on into the middle section here, where I wanted to take it a little bit different. A little bit like you said, the ebb and flow of the universe. I want to ebb and flow this episode, a little bit of yin and yang. We always talk about the best of the best, but I want to talk about the worst of the worst, because you guys sort of know this. I love a bit of a moan and a bit of a rant. A bit, only a bit.
Uh-oh.
So I thought I would pick some worst inventions of all time, just so I can have a little bit of a dig, because that's what I like to do. And Steve Jobs, actually, I nearly wrote down Apple on here, even though I am an iPhone user, because I've been editing some of these episodes on a Mac, which I'm not used to, and they're completely stupid for the sake of being different and stupid. Like, the little command button that just does exist just to make your life more difficult. The fact that all the cross and the minimize is on the left-hand side of the screen, not the right-hand side. It just winds me up. So Steve Jobs can sit on one. I'm not having that. Sorry, Apple users. Do one.
I mean, he also did like sort of ride on the backs of Chinese slaves, but we'll move on from that as well.
So sorry, Vinny, you can't have Steve Jobs in that argument, but you can have the other geezer. Well done. I've got a little list of I've got a couple on here of some absolutely awful inventions. And I don't know if you guys can think of any while I'm rattling through these as well. But a couple on here, I've got baby cage. This was sort of back in the day. I don't know when it was. I didn't really look. It was like black and white. So whenever that was.
What?
I can't remember if it was like the 60s or the 30s. It was like back then, you know what I mean? So
right, what was it?
Baby cage was basically, it was like a little cage. It's what it says on the tin. You hang this cage out your window so the baby gets fresh air, and you put them in there, and then you close the window, and then when you want to feed them and actually open the window up, here's a bit of food, close it down. That was a real thing, really sold.
Did any babies fall out windows? You were assuming.
I didn't read about any. I didn't go that deep, but I saw baby cage and was like, my God, I can't believe that. There was a couple I saw off Dragon's Den. One of these is great. It's called Throx, which is socks, but you get 3 in a pack. Throx. And
what's the third one for?
So I'll tell you what the third one's really for, then I'll tell you what I think it was for. It was for, basically, the argument was, well, you get a pair of socks, you always lose one, don't you? So you got a spare.
Genius.
Genius. But I think he just wanted to put it on his knob. That's what I think. I think he wanted to match his knob with his feet, to be honest.
There is time for Willy time with Seb. Have any of you...
Oh, wait.
All right.
Do we got to do that? It's Willy time with Seb.
Have any... You know, there's that, like, in pop culture, people always talk about using a sock to have a wank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
No.
No.
No, me neither. It's weird. I'm very abrasive.
Yeah, just use some tissues and toilet paper. That shit's cheap as fuck.
Yeah, but what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's America.
Well, this Throx guy was American, so he's the guy to ask. I think that's where it came from, honestly. I don't buy the whole, well, you lose one business.
Well, you lose one if you spunk it.
Exactly, yeah.
I've got one that, I don't know if I'd call it, like, it's not funny, it's just really, really bad, and it probably is the worst invention ever, to be honest. I can't remember the name of it, but it was the guy who invented a type of car oil which basically used lead, and because of him, they ended up dumping a shit ton of lead into our atmosphere and causing a lot more people to have a lot more lead in their blood, which is really, really bad. And also the ozone layer got really fucked by that.
Did they know that at the time, though? Because I saw another on these lists when I was researching, it was like, asbestos, worst invention ever. And I was like, well, obviously with hindsight, but at the time they sort of like didn't really know, did they? Do you know what I mean? At the time it was like, great.
At the time he did know, but it was a way of saving money.
Well, asshole then,
yep.
Yeah.
And he actually died from lead poisoning.
Well, screw him then.
Comeuppance, yeah.
Another one I've got on here, which Seb will disagree with, but he's an idiot, is those stupid Kanye West, like, slit glasses.
Oh...
They are stupid. They're not cool. You
Shutter
don't look
glasses,
cool wearing
shutter
them.
shades.
They are ridiculous. What is the point of that?
They were big for like 1 year in like 2008 or something.
I know. Seb had a pair and he wore them all the time.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
I've never owned a pair, you piece of shit. What? I've never owned a pair of them stupid glasses.
I can imagine you owning a pair.
Do you think they're stupid too? I swear down you had one. You thought they were wicked.
Me and you, mate.
Oh dear, oh dear. Who am I thinking of then?
Some other weird, needy kid.
Yeah. I am, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Seb. I'm glad you agree. But because they are stupid, aren't they? They are one of the most stupid, ridiculous things I've ever invented. Why?
You just can't see it outside of them. Like, as soon as you put them on, you just can't see shit. Like, it's not good.
It's a typical Kanye thing to invent, isn't it? Did he invent them? No, but he sort of popularised them, didn't he? So yeah, I just wanted to get sort of a few of those off my chest. Like I said, I like to have a little bit of moan, so I feel a little bit better now, debating some of the worst. I don't want to change the show. I love goats. I think it's great to talk about the best, but I think occasionally we do need to have a little bit of a rant off our chest. It really helps me breathe. It really makes me feel a bit better, as you guys know. It's sort of my passion in life is having a bit of a moan. So Sebi, it's over to you, mate. You need to hit us with your greatest invention of all time.
Yes. Obviously, this is a biggie, and I feel like we've all got in the habit of, and I'm just as guilty, we always start our little lectures. It's not really a lecture, but our little presentations by saying we had a big old think. And I had a big old think. I had a big old think about what invention had the biggest impact on humanity and just on me personally. And like, obviously, the first thing that springs to mind when you think about big inventions is the wheel, you know?
Fire,
fire, the wheel,
crack,
fire, the wheel, and crack. The dark triad. And then I just thought, like, the first caveman who like rolled something on a log invented the wheel, didn't he? Really? They just sort of like. Yeah. I understand it's a big deal, but maybe I'm underselling it. Whatever. And then I thought maybe the pill, like the birth control pill.
Right. Yeah.
But then I thought, that kind of just solved a problem. A bit like the bottled water, it sort of created a problem because, the pull-out method, we don't even know who invented that. Probably some caveman. And that's always been fine.
No, it hasn't.
No, it has.
Terrible advice.
No,
right. Kids, don't do LSD trips. And don't use the pull-out method.
I just imagine some caveman being like, I swear he tried to pull out, but you're just so pretty, he lose control. I'll try better next time, you swear. And then I thought, what about the computer? Obviously, that's a big deal, innit? Yeah. You can't get bigger than that. And then I realised if I did that, I could go on my big rant about how the British government did Alan Turing dirty, and they're a bunch of shameless scumbags.
Yeah,
but then I realised I'd already done that in episode 3.
Yeah, I've already done that. Yeah,
I just get really wound up by it. Really,
I know. I've heard your Alan Turing rant a few times. It's a good one.
And then the answer hit me like a train. Like it was so obvious.
Right.
What is the one invention? I'm going to ask you. This is not a rhetorical question.
Okay.
What is the one invention that every other invention is held against?
The lighter.
No. Vinny?
The wheels, what sprung to mind, to be honest.
You're going to kick yourself, boys.
Go.
Wow. It might be the greatest, but it's only the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Oh, you little fucker. You've got us there. I can't believe I've just fell for that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And yeah, I'm really doing it. So, bread.
Oh, my God.
It's been around.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. The greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh, my. I can't believe we're here. It's only episode 6. I can't believe we're here already. We've got to crown sliced bread as the greatest. Oh, God. This is the last episode.
So bread has been around for about 30,000 years.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. Now, here's something I didn't know. I'm already hitting you with the hard facts here. Although we humans, a.k.a. Homo sapiens, have been around for about... We like to say that we've been around for about 10 times that. So if you Google it, it will say about 300,000 years. However, that's actually a little bit, not a lie, but it's not strictly true. So those Homo sapiens 300,000 years ago would not have been exactly the same as we are. They wouldn't have been what's known as like a modern Homo sapiens. So they would have had the same size-ish brains, maybe even a bit bigger, but less dense. And they would have been genetically almost identical. Like they are Homo sapiens, but they're not like exactly as we are today.
Right.
And the ones that are exactly the same as us have only been around for about 100,000 years. Still a really long time, don't get me wrong. But that means that bread has been around for about a third of modern humanity. Now, there's basically 2 big moments in bread. There's actually 3, but the third one comes after sliced bread, and I don't want to go into
in bread history.
Yeah, so there's 3 big moments in bread history. The third one doesn't really relate to my argument. There's 2 big moments we need to worry about in the history of bread.
Okay.
The first big moment in bread was the transition from hunter-gatherers to farmers, which happened about 15,000 years ago. So that's when we as humans stopped just going from place to place, roaming the land on like a cycle, just finding the next place to gather resources, use up the local resources, hunt all the wildlife, eat all the crops until there's not much left, and then move on. When we went from that to staying in the same place and cultivating food and animals and crops to stay in the same place and live off the land in that sense. And once we did that, once we started staying in the same spot rather than wandering around, we suddenly had an abundance of grain and cereals, which is like not cereals as in like breakfast cereals, but cereals as in the grain, like wheat that makes bread. And this meant that rather than just the occasional flurry of like wheat when we bumped into some on our travels, suddenly we could just keep making it. And that made we could really up our bread game, because obviously there's no point investing a lot of time into something that you're only going to do once or twice a year at best, when UGG finds that one plant that you can crush and make water flour. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You could just constantly keep making bread then.
Exactly. So then you may as well invest some time into it. So something that I didn't really know is that the yeast fungus goes hand in hand with cereals like wheat. So even if you don't have any yeast of your own, if you find wild wheat, grind it up into flour, pour water on it, and let it sit, it will naturally rise in the same way that it would if you put yeast in it, because it already has a small amount of yeast in there naturally.
Right.
I didn't realise that.
Okay.
So that process is called leavening, because you leave it and it grows.
Leave it, yeah.
Now, about 5,000 years ago, the Egyptians started adding their own salt and their own yeast, which are the two things that you need to make bread rise, like properly. And it's basically stayed the same since then. Like, I mean that. For 5,000 years, bread just did its own thing.
Right, okay.
Didn't change.
Yeah.
And then about 4,950 years later.
So when is this? 1950?
About 1912 is when it's supposed to be. I don't know if I've done my maths quite right. A bloke called Otto Rohwedder turns up. And he genuinely makes the first big leap forward for bread in, depending on which way you look at it, 5 to 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Madness. Otto Rohwedder, he was a jeweler, he was a watchmaker, but he was so much more than that. He was a man with a dream. His dream was of pre-sliced, pre-packaged bread. And he was so convinced that he could pull off this outrageous feat and change bread as he knew it and as we knew it, that he sold his jewelry store and spent it all on creating his wondrous bread slicing machine.
The knife.
No. Fuck you. In 1917, disaster strikes, as it does to all great inventors. You know, what are we without struggle?
Right. Who said that? David
I don't
Beckham.
David Beckham.
Did he really?
Of course he fucking didn't.
In 1917, the factory that he was building his bread slicing machine burnt down, and his prototype was lost.
They always burn down. Why did it burn down? It's always like, oh, it burnt down. I bet it was an insurance job.
It was not an insurance job. There was just a lot of fires back then.
Yeah, well, yeah. There was a lot of dodgy insurance companies as well, I bet.
Well, yeah. But anyway, did he give up? Do you think he gave up?
I think you're going to say he did. And
You're
another
right.
fella came in and did it,
You're
yeah.
right, he did give up.
'Cause
No,
I
he
haven't-
fucking didn't.
Oh.
He didn't give up.
Oh, I was just thinking because I haven't heard the name Mr. Hovis yet. So,
Hovis isn't... he's just a fucking charlatan.
oh, okay.
So, in 1927, Otto climbs back up the mountain, metaphorically, and he created the machine of his dreams that could not only slice the bread, but package it all automatically. Is that how you say that? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, automatically. Yeah.
that's all right. Yeah, that's good.
So he patents his invention. He sells one to his mate, a baker called Frank Bench, who installs this wondrous machine at the Chillicothe Baking Company in Missouri. And on the 7th of July, 1928, they sell the first ever loaf of pre-sliced, pre-packaged bread.
Wow.
Mental. Now, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Were the public ready for sliced bread?
Were they? I bet they weren't. I bet they hated it.
Well, a local news article had this to say on the 6th of July. So they literally, the press were waiting for this first sliced bread, right? They'd written an article a day before, and they had this to say. While the typical housewife might find sliced bread, quote, startling at first. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, I don't need to cut it. Oh, my God.
She would soon feel, and this is a direct quote, a thrill of pleasure when she sees a loaf of this bread with each slice the exact counterpart of its fellows. So neat and precise are the slices, and so definitely better than anyone could possibly slice by hand with a bread knife, that one realizes instantly here is a refinement that will receive a hearty and permanent welcome. And you know what? They were right. By 1933, 5 years later, 80% of all of the bread sold in the US was pre-sliced.
Wow.
Incredible.
In fact, it was such a big deal that in January 1943, a decade later, the US government, a bit like LSD actually, ordered a ban on pre-sliced bread.
What?
Really?
Yeah, because they felt it needed more packaging than an unsliced loaf. It was part of the war effort, right? And they thought, we'll cut down on packaging. But there was such a huge public outcry, including from the New York Times, which published a letter from a housewife who claimed that without pre-sliced bread, she would have to cut 22 slices a day, that in March the same year, the ban was rescinded. They backed down.
Wow.
They pussied out pretty quick.
Since then, pre-sliced bread has dominated shelves all over the US and the UK and pretty much the whole world. And with this invention, do you know what also skyrocketed?
Margarine.
Not margarine, toasters. Because suddenly you
of
could say the
course.
exact size that it was going to be.
So what? So
Wow.
so toasters were invented before sliced bread.
Yes.
So do you think there was just like loads of? It sounds misogynistic, but it's not, because it was sign of the times when housewives chopping up huge, massive slices of bread and trying to shove it, and like, oh, it's too fucking big for the toaster. I'll do it again, and just wasting loads.
Yeah. Honestly, this news article, people are going wild. They're like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to waste so much less bread. Blah, blah, blah. It's incredible, right? Now, this invention has literally changed the world. Like, everywhere has sliced bread. Japan has sliced bread. India has sliced bread. The UK has sliced bread. The US has sliced bread.
Yeah.
Right?
We haven't got time to go for every country, but yeah, I get the gist.
Fuck off.
You've got a list right
we
here.
have to do 25 minutes of Stoner Boy going on about LSD. You can listen to my fucking bread list.
I know what
Keep going. Burma has sliced bread.
Fiji, sliced bread.
Now, here's a stat for you, right? This is how much it's changed the world. Since the invention of sliced bread, 8 in 10 Brits eat toast for breakfast. Now, I think I've made my point.
What was the stat before then?
I don't know.
What if it was 8 out of 10?
I realised that 8 out of 10 people have sliced bread, toast for breakfast now. I don't know what the stat was before.
How many of those 8 out of 10 have pre-packaged sliced bread? Toast
I don't fucking know. All right, just fuck off. Right. I think I've made my point with some time to spare. Sliced bread is the GOAT invention. It changed bread, it changed breakfast, it changed the world. And so, with a bit of my spare time, I would like to ask you some bread-based questions.
Oh god, we got bread quiz. Let's do the jingle. Vinny, give me a beat. It's bread quiz.
Why is your voice the same for every single one? It's the same as Willy Time with Seb.
Oh, okay, we'll do a different one. Vinny, give me a jingle. Give me a beat. It's a bread quiz.
I like it. Firstly, this is one that I'm expecting you to get, Michael. Which Manchester United defender got rinsed online when he posted a picture of a plate of toast his partner had made for him that was burnt to a crisp?
What a question. Harry Maguire.
No, it's Marcus Rojo.
Wow.
Look it up. Type in right now, Marcus Rojo toast.
You've literally just asked me a question. Think of a person.
No, because it's iconic. It's a moment in pop
I've never
culture.
heard of that. I've never heard of that. I've never even heard of Marcus Rojo.
Hang on. I type in Marcus Rojo, which is a football player that I do know quite well, and the first thing that comes up isn't his Wikipedia page or his FIFA rating or anything like that. The very first thing that comes up is actually Marcus Rojo toast.
That's because he's not known for anything else. I've never heard of this fella.
Look at the state of the toast.
Hang on, I'm looking this up as well.
There's not even any butter on it.
It's just...
What's she got out? She's got like a tub of oregano in her hand as well.
Oh, it's so burnt. It's just dry, burnt toast.
I actually don't know where he's from.
Argentina or Uruguay?
Argentina. I think part of it was just a picture he put on his Instagram to try and like sort of get a bit of cultural, like, oh look, I'm having toast like you guys do.
But yeah, no idea what toast was.
But he got absolutely fucking wrecked for it. I mean, that's me assuming that Argentina isn't on the list of countries that have toast.
We don't know. To be fair, Seb, we didn't let you finish the whole list. So
No, you
fair
didn't.
enough. Fair enough.
So, on the back of this incident, this international incident, the market research company YouGov conducted market research on how people like their toast. That was very boring. It was just like how we all like our toast, golden brown. Move on. But they also found out the UK's top toast toppings. Now, can you...
Is this the next question? What is the top toast
Yeah.
toppings? Okay.
What are
Marmite,
they?
peanut butter,
how many are
Nutella,
there? We'll go through.
jam, butter.
Right, you can't just...
Slow down. We'll go through like hot potato. I'll do one, you do one. How many are there to get?
You can get... I've done the top 5.
Okay, butter.
That's number 1.
Marmite.
That was number 7, I remember, but it's not on my answers.
Jam.
That is number 3.
Marmalade.
That's number 4.
Marmite, fucking number 4. Peanut butter.
No.
Nutella.
That, right, I put this at the bottom because it shocked me so much. More people eat pate on toast regularly than have Nutella on toast.
Oh.
What's wrong with people?
So what, is pate in the top 5?
No, pate is like number...
Okay,
18
so
or
we've
something.
only got 3 so far. Honey.
No.
Uh,
One of them is a bit of a curveball.
Avocado.
Not avocado, no.
More toast.
Pasta.
Bacon.
No. You're going to
Cheese.
kick his... Cheese! Cheese is number 2!
Hey!
Oh, yeah. Cheese on toast. Yeah, got you. You got me there, Seb.
And then the last one, do you want me to just give it to you?
Yeah, give it us.
Yep.
It's margarine/spread.
That's the
I
same as
said
butter.
margarine.
No, it's not. But did you? Sorry, Vinny. If you did say that, you can have it.
Listeners
is
at
the
home,
same,
if
innit?
you did say margarine, send us a text.
Yeah, listeners at home. Yeah, message in goats.
What? Yeah, but hang on.
underscore
They've
whatever.
got butter and margarine different.
Yeah, they're
Separate.
different things. Butter is made from churned milk. Margarine is spread made from vegetable fat.
Oh yeah, but they're basically the same, aren't they?
Well, no, they're different. That's like saying jam
Well-
and marmalade are the same thing.
One's vegan, one isn't.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, you fuckers.
You
Fucking
fucking got me.
vegans.
You got me.
Bloody snowflakes.
You'll eat your fucking meat and you'll like it.
Back in my day, my wife would cook toast with bare hands. And she'd rub her own butter on it from her tits.
She'd kill a lamb from the farm, spread it over the butter.
Oh wow. What's the next question?
No, that was it.
Oh,
You're horrible. Can I just say that was the best bread time with Seb moment we've had on the podcast
Yeah.
yet?
I appreciate that.
absolutely,
We've hit a high there.
Wow.
Yeah, so just to summarise, obviously, bread, massive part of humankind. It's fueled nations, got us to where we need to be. And then, obviously, there's only one thing better than bread, and that's pre-sliced bread. And, I just think it all comes down to the idea that LSD might be one of the greatest things. It could even be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Can I just say, I can't believe I'm in this position where I've got to choose between LSD and sliced fucking bread. I don't know what to say. If you are still listening at this point, please send us a message. Please help me and give me some sympathy for this decision that I'm about to make.
Now you know how I felt at the end of video games.
Yeah, well, that was easy.
Well, both were actually valid answers.
Can
I don't know about this episode.
No, LSD, maybe not, but sliced bread.
Okay, right. At this point, I'm debating whether or not to crown the fucking shutter glasses. Let's break this down. So, we've got LSD. It is being held up by you, Vinny, as the greatest invention of all time for its medicinal properties in curing addiction, mental health, and starting a hippie culture which has had a knock-on effect throughout history. That's the argument for LSD, correct?
Revolutionary invention that can save thousands, if not millions of lives. Yes, yeah, that is correct.
And then, Seb, the crux of your argument in that sliced bread is the greatest invention of all time is the saying, best thing since sliced bread. Is that true?
No!
No, the crux of it is that bread has been a key staple in human evolution all the way back 30,000 years ago and 15,000 years ago when we changed from hunter-gatherer to farmer, and we've started creating bread and living off bread, and then in 1912, Mr. Hovis, or not Mr. Hovis, whatever the fella was called, made the machine to cut the sliced bread, and then he burnt his warehouse down, and using the insurance money, he made a better machine and sold that to his mate. They made sliced bread. Bang! Everybody loved it. 8 out of 10 people eat it. More people have pate on toast than they do Nutella. Best thing since sliced bread is the greatest invention of all time. That's where we're at. Oh my god, this is the hardest one yet. This, honestly, I don't know what to do. Because on the one hand, you've got a chemical which gets a bad rap, but actually has, like, incredible properties to help potentially millions of people, and those properties are just sort of, like, completely untapped by regulation and, like, public opinion on that. It's really bad. And on the other hand, you've literally got just bread, sliced bread, which sounds like nothing, but everybody buys bread every single day. It's like the thing.
Right, I know I always do this. I take up a lot of airtime talking, but it is a podcast. I want you to just close your eyes.
Right.
And in your mind, walk into your local Tesco's, or even that weird gammy little Spar at the bottom of the road.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
Close your eyes and look at the bread shelf in your mind.
Yeah.
And tell me how much of that bread is pre-sliced.
I think all of it is.
Exactly! It changed the world. We've never gone back. There's the world pre-sliced bread and the world post-sliced bread. Instant change.
Yeah.
You could say the same about the 60s, I think.
Right, I've made my decision. It's done.
Right, okay, I'm excited.
Okay, here we go. I am going to decide, based on the impact that this product could potentially have.
Oh, you fucker.
That, this is mental, that LSD is the greatest thing since sliced bread and is the greatest invention of all time.
That's right. Good decision.
Because I like sliced bread, obviously, and it is a great invention, but I feel like it's come as far as it can go, and LSD has more to go. It can fly higher.
Yet to hit its stride.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it can keep going. It can be more than what it is already, and I think it's got potential to go even further, and it will be reinvented and reinvented and reinvented, but sliced bread will just be sliced bread forever.
Do you know what I feel like? I feel like Marcus Rojo. I try to connect, and I just feel like if I pick something which 80% of the population eat, and it's just not good enough for you.
I'm sorry, Seb. I'm sorry, but you know that this is the nature of these things.
You try your best, and you don't succeed. And you are what you want, but not what you need.
You've had to break into song.
But I will try, to fix you.
Brilliant. That was lovely,
Thank
Seb.
you, Seb. Thank you, Seb.
But there we are. We've done it. We've made it through that one. Like I said, LSD now is going to be classed as the greatest invention of all time forever by everybody in the world ever, which is an incredible feat. To be honest, Vinny, I didn't think that you would make it that far with your argument on the first sort of 10 minutes of your presentation. It was diabolical.
Yeah, neither.
But you did actually swing me, and it's now going in the goat pen. Charlie Sheen's going to be disappointed that he's not in there now, but I'm sure OJ will be buzzing. I know Billy Shears is absolutely buzzing, but they're probably getting quite hungry about that bread, to be honest. I feel a bit bad now, but there we are. Next week, boys, we've got an exciting one. We are going to be going through the greatest magician of all time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm taking on you, Seb. It's going to be a great episode. Little insight. I love magic. I absolutely love it. I wanted to be a magician when I was younger. Genuinely, that's not a joke. That's a serious thing. I was well into it, wasn't I, Vinny?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good one. But actually, before we leave you, the Tell 'em Mate Challenge, that's been going very well, hasn't it, Seb? We've got a few shout-outs to give to a few of our lovely listeners that have been sending us in the Tell 'em Mate Challenge. Before we go for the shout-outs, if you haven't done the Tell 'em Mate Challenge already, get on it. If you've already done it, feel free to do it again. Keep telling everybody. The more people you tell, the better this is going to get. It will be even better than sliced bread. So here we go. Do you want to go through a couple, Seb?
So the Tell 'em Mate Challenge, for those of you who haven't listened to this all the way through previously, is a challenge in which if you take a screenshot of you telling a mate about goats, the greatest podcast of all time, where we crown the goats, and you send it in via Instagram, _goats_pod, or to our email at thegoatspod@gmail.com. If you send it there, we'll shout you out of the show. And if you have a funny little quip in there, we'll read out your funny little quip. So Hannah Stubbs, she sent it to her sister, I believe. I say I believe, I know, because I know both of them. And she just shared the link. So well done. I give you an A for effort. You didn't write a witty thing, but you don't have to. Just thank you for doing that.
I've got one here from Nathan Weber, who has sent the podcast to Dom. He says, "This is Seb, Vinny, and Michael chatting absolute shite about random shit." Well, fair enough.
Nail on the head.
Yeah, that is entirely true. We also got one from Charlie Thomas, who we know. He wrote, "Oi, Lizard, have a listen to these lads. I know two of them, and it's quite funny, mate."
You can't sell it better than that either. Thank you very much, Charlie Thomas.
And we also got one. Now, Christopher Orr, he actually lives in the same house as me. And I've got to say, he has been repping the brand. He has been shouting us out. Although, as Michael pointed out, he did say so proud of Sabette Lark. Didn't tag the rest of you.
Very disappointed. I thought we were mates.
He also tried to mug me off because he sent me on WhatsApp my own podcast and then screenshotted it and sent it to the show.
Yeah. So, unlike Hannah Stubbs, what's the lowest grade? You get a U for effort. We're not going to grade that one. Try again next time.
Yeah, I think that's all the shout-outs we got, unless you've got any more.
Let me just check. No, I think that's all of them. Yeah, but thank you very much for supporting the show. Like I said, if you laugh at this podcast, if you enjoy it, if you're still listening now, just tell one person. If everybody tells one person, we'll get there in the end, and this will definitely be the greatest podcast of all time. We promise you that now.
Anyone got anything else?
Nope, not from me. Vinny?
Nope, not from me.
All right then. Well, I guess we'll say goodbye.
See you next week.
See ya.
Bye.